9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the Mansmith Sales Summit. I hope you're excited as I am to hear and learn more about our new sales competencies. My notes are filled with so many insights yesterday, and the Mansmith team is generous enough to provide us a recap before we officially start day 2. Please watch this.
Turn those headwinds into tailwinds. Leverage on constantly changing market dynamics to your advantage. Play your products and brands into bullets that penetrate the right shoppers, channels that will continue the top line and bottom line growth for your business. Maximize the full growing your sales while keeping the unnecessary costs and expenses at bay, avoiding the risk that will result from the wrong products being in the wrong channels.
That whatever you're doing, whether it's a push or pull initiative, thematic or tactical, it should all contribute to building the brand. Also, as you move along and building that brand, let's not forget the basics. Sometimes people concentrate too much on high-level strategy that they forget the basics. The basics are still very important. And what are those basics? Knowing your market, putting all the pieces of marketing in place, the right product, the right price, the right promotion, at the right place.
Instead, what we can change is, as I said earlier, product portfolio mix. But more importantly, is deciding how to move the stock within the country to be more efficient. And being innovative is very important thing. Of course, we have to revisit our channel strategy, and then also try to identify and establish more new business engines. It's from different line of products. As I said, maybe the desktop is one, all-in-one desktop is one alternative, and on top more than that. No?
We learned that the emerging sales competencies are combinations of science and art. So to review, these are number 1, design thinking. Our ability to meet our customers' needs and desires in a technologically feasible and strategically viable way. The other competency is data analytics. And when you are skilled, knowledgeable in data analytics, it helps you overcome your cognitive biases or your heuristics. So we need objective information and right methods and tools for analysis. So thirdly is what I discussed called insighting. So to help us get to the bottom of our customers' pain points, we need insights which are very critical in the formulation of more robust strategies. And lastly, segmentation models. So salespeople need to be able to know different segmentation models and to help us allocate our resources in terms of time, people, money, and energy.
All right. What a fantastic first day. Now, I don't want to keep everybody waiting, so let's get the ball rolling. To kick off session 4, allow me to introduce our first speaker today. He's currently the president and general manager of Calabria Company Limited, the makers of Navalino Wines, the market-leading wine brand in the Philippines. In this capacity, he's responsible for managing all aspects of the business with a focus on business development, product development, sales, marketing, and distribution. He graduated with a degree in economics from the University of Wisconsin in Madison and completed the wine executive program at the University of California, Davis. In 2015, he was awarded the ASEAN Business Award for Young Entrepreneur of the Year. To share more about traction, getting a grip on your business, please welcome Chris Kimbo.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christopher Kimbo. I am the president and owner of Novelino Wines. We are the market-leading wine brand in the Philippines. So I hope you guys have heard of us, because if you haven't, it means I'm not doing a good enough job with my marketing. So I've been tasked with the opportunity of sharing with you guys some tools that we use that have been very helpful for us. You know, when the pandemic hit, it was a very challenging time for our company, like many other companies. We're in the wine industry, so obviously in 2020, even last year, 2021, we were hit with many different liquor bans, which made it impossible to even sell our product. But we never use that as a crutch, and as a result, our company's been able to grow despite all of those challenges, grow significantly to the fact that we had the biggest growth year maybe in company history last year, if you can imagine, despite all of those challenges. And I attribute a lot of it to having proper tools in place that hold everyone accountable, that give clear vision on the company. So the tool that we use is something that's called EOS, which stands for Entrepreneur's Operating System. And a lot of what I'm going to share today is based off of the book by Gino Wickman called Traction. So I guess I'll start by answering like, what is EOS? EOS is an operating system. It's a complete set of simple concepts and practical tools that have helped thousands of entrepreneurs get what they want from their businesses. And implementing EOS will help you and the leadership team get better at really three main pillars of the business, which is the vision, making sure everyone has the same vision for where the company is going. Traction, making sure you're actually making progress and heading towards the direction of fulfilling that vision. Then healthy, making sure that your leaders as well as your staff are growing in a more cohesive, functional way. Okay, so behind every company or business, there are 6 major components, and I like to separate it by vision and traction. And the vision components are really first being vision, making sure that the leader of the company or the CEO or founder are able to clearly articulate why the business exists. I truly believe that if your reason for existing is to make profit, you'll never actually succeed, or you won't succeed as much as if you were actually fulfilling a purpose. Making money is just kind of a byproduct of fulfilling your vision. So having a clear vision and understanding why your business exists and communicating that to your staff is extremely important. So once you set that vision and a clear roadmap and future for the company, you have to make sure you have the right people. So the people have to be in the right seats. There's a famous quote, it's, our job isn't to get the right behavior from the wrong people, it's to get the right people in the right seats in the bus going the right direction. I truly believe that too. Data is the other side of it too, so you can't measure whether or not you're actually doing well unless you have clear data. And you have a scorecard is what we use, which I'll talk about later on. The bottom half of the components are now about traction. And traction is just the concept of making sure that you're actually making progress towards the vision, towards the direction which the company is trying to go. In order to do that, you need to make sure that you have good processes in mind, that everything is kind of laid out for your people. And then also issues. So a lot of my time, especially in these weekly meetings, are having an ongoing list of issues. And identifying the issues actually becomes tricky. It's kind of part of the whole meetings is to identify what are the issues that prevent you from getting there. And we spend our time, most of our time, really solving issues using what's called IDS. So we identify the issues, we discuss solutions, and then we solve. So we follow that framework all the time, and ultimately putting all those things together lead towards getting traction towards your vision. So in that kind of setting of the vision meeting, it's important that we kind of come up with what is like our 10-year horizon. Like, where do we want to be in 10 years? And then what you're basically doing after that is splitting it up into bite sizes. Starting with 10 years, going to 3 years, It's even broad, just like what does it look like in 3 years from now, assuming you're on your way to your 10-year target. And then from 3 years, it's, well, what's your 1-year plan? What do you plan on doing for 2022? And then from that, you break it out by quarter. Every 90 days, you guys meet again. How did we perform? Evaluate the performance, but spend, again, more time making sure you're actually solving issues. So I think one of the fundamental problems I see in many business reviews is we spend too much time looking backwards, when really you should be looking forwards. Like whatever time you do spend on doing a thorough evaluation of the business, the reason why you're doing that is not just to present to your staff to show that you're on top of it, you know what's going on. The real reason is to identify, well, what are the issues that I learned from previous experience that can help me do and deliver the targets I need to for this year, and also move the company towards the direction that management wants it to go. And so we split that up into bite sizes. So every 90 days we have these meetings, and then every week, in order to make sure we're getting traction, we have a 90-minute meeting every week. And we make sure that we're always on time. We always show up, not even a minute late. And the only reason you can miss those meetings are if you're sick, on vacation, or you're dead. So it's very important that everyone attends those meetings, because that way you're able to really track progress. So I want to talk about what that 90-minute meeting looks like, because maybe it's something that you guys can incorporate with your business. Every meeting is structured. Like you can see here, there's a clear itinerary, and most of the time in this meeting is going to be spent solving issues. But before you do that, you have to kind of review certain tools that you should already put in place from the vision building day. And that is, of course, a segue. It's the first thing you need to do. We're all human, so we like to check in with each other, see how we're doing with one another. And then we review kind of the scorecard. So how are we performing? The scorecard is an important thing for any organization to make. The idea behind the scorecard is if you could, give a one-page summary to the owners of the company and they live on an island, what would they need to know whether the business was healthy or not? And the answer to any scorecard is either yes or no. It's never like a number. It's, for example, if you want your fill rate to be at least 95%, then was it over 95% or was it under 95%? If it was under, it would just be a no. If it was over, it would be a yes. If it's a yes, you just move on. If it's a no, you add that to an issues list. What prevented you from fulfilling a 95% fill rate? I think that's a big issue too, that many salespeople think that their only responsibility is just to hit their sales target. And this is only maybe one or two components of the scorecard. There's a lot more that goes into the business than just delivering target. So that's an important concept too. It's something to think about whenever your organization crafts their scorecard. Okay, rocks are also an important thing to review. The idea of rocks are basically that, as a salesperson or any position in any company, you get caught up in the day-to-day. And that typically takes up most of your time to the point where you're not really able to do any projects. And rocks are like 90-day projects that you want to complete. And projects are really what drive the business forward. I don't think people really realize that. The concept here behind rocks and sand is that if the day-to-day stuff is like the sand, if you have a container, let's say, of rocks, a container of sand, and you have an empty container, and you're saying fit these things into this empty container, if you fill it up with the sand first, you have no room for the rocks. If you put the rocks in first, and then you pour the sand over, you'll be able to get everything done, fit everything into that container. So that's the concept, that you should prioritize the rocks, the 90-day projects. And you also shouldn't have too many. Each person in my company, and as suggested by the book, should only have between 5 to 7 rocks, 90-day projects that they need to complete. And that way, if you prioritize the rocks and you get those done, then it's going to drive the business a lot further than just constantly doing the day-to-day tasks. Okay, like I said, you have an ongoing issues list, and most of this 90-minute meeting is going to be spent doing what's called IDS, which is identifying the issues. What are the issues? So like I said, on the scorecard, If you don't hit a scorecard, it becomes an issue. So you move it over to the issues list. For the rocks, if you're on track or off track on the rocks, if you're off track on a 90-day project, then it gets added to the issues list. And you spend that time with your team, with your leadership team, understanding why is it that I'm not able to be on track with my rock, or why is it I'm not able to meet the KPI for my scorecard. So we do that by IDSing, like I said. We identify the root cause, we discuss solutions, and we solve. Once we kind of agree on how to solve that, we add it to the to-do list. And the to-do list, one person owns it, and it's something that we review every single week. Having this structure every week, I guarantee you, will make sure that the company is making progress. And incorporating it into your sales force or into your sales team at first will be quite difficult, I think, for your team. They won't be happy about it because it's an extra meeting, but by the end of it, after maybe 1 year of doing it, even just 6 months, you and your employees will wonder how you were doing business without it. So it's an extremely important process. And the fact that you're doing it, I think, with everyone allows you to get perspectives from other people, and it allows your team to be more collaborative. All right, you guys, so that's a really quick run through EOS. Again, all of these concepts are based off of the book Traction by Gino Wickman. So I highly recommend reading the book yourself. Normally what happens is you would hire an implementer. We have a few here in the Philippines that can do it for you. It's quite a big investment, but it's just a great thing to do for any company. I'm a firm believer in that. I did it myself. It's going to take months, I think, for people to actually start embracing it, but it's time well spent, I think, for sure. So if you haven't already, get the book, and if you are not the one that can actually implement it, then share it with your business owner. I'm sure they will thank you in the long run. Thank you guys for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for introducing us to EOS and for sharing with us how having the right tools make us more efficient in hitting our goals beyond just delivering targets. It's interesting to note that the very first thing that came out of your talk today was saying that it's really important to have a purpose. It's not always about trying to make sure that at the end of the day the profit is going to be hit. So it echoes everything that the speakers from yesterday had mentioned. Also, I wanted to say how good it is to meet somebody from a fellow UC, from a UCI person in here. So hooray UC, right, Chris?
That's right.
Let me look at the Q&A box and see the questions that we have. All right. First question, can I implement EOS without a professional?
You can. You definitely can. It's going to be more difficult, I think. But like I said, if you read the book, I think there's some good concepts in there and tools that you can incorporate. I think you could do it. It's just going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of like willpower, because this is a whole new system you implement in your company. They're probably used to whatever they have before, whatever meetings they have before. But you could definitely do it if you had the willpower and the authority to do it.
Great. Hold on. Next question is, how do you come up with your 10-year target? Do you ever adjust it if you're off track?
Yeah, or I think it's very important for any company to have like a longer time horizon. You know, sometimes as salespeople, we're just hoping to achieve our like maybe monthly or quarterly targets, but it's important to know the big picture, to have that same vision as the business owners and as management. So you want to, the 10-year target should be like a number that you can rally behind, something that's very clear, right? It can even be like X number of cases or X number of revenue, and it's something that you rally behind and you review every single quarter, because you keep reviewing that over and over with your organization every quarter. You do challenge it once a year. So at the end of the year, when you have your annual pulse meeting, you have a portion of that 2-day business review to kind of challenge whether that target is realistic or not, or whether you're allowed to, as an organization, you're allowed to change it together. And I think that's better too, because you get kind of the input from everyone in the company.
Right. Are there required number of people to be in an L10 meeting?
Yeah, well, If it's too many, it's going to be difficult to finish in 90 minutes. So I would say first look at your organizational chart. Maybe the leadership team should be meeting together. And then as they branch out, I would say the optimum number is probably between 5 and 10 people, ideally, for it to be productive.
Got it. A few more questions in here, Chris. Sir, on your to-do list, is it for the next week or longer? Can you give examples of, can you give examples of those to-do lists for your salespeople? And is your meeting face-to-face or virtual?
You can conduct the meeting virtual if you want. I prefer to do them face-to-face. So all of this stuff, all these tools are on like a Google spreadsheet. So if it's a Zoom meeting, we put it on the shared screen. If it's in person, we have a projector. The to-do list is a active to-do list every single week. And when you're IDSing, remember I said identify the root cause, discuss solutions, and then solve. Obviously, once you solve it as a team, there's like a to-do, right? You solved it. This is how you solve that issue. And so you add that to the to-do list, and then one person owns that particular task, and you all agree that that's the way you solve that issue. So when you meet every week, if someone's not doing it, you'll see it. And that's the whole idea. You have that kind of accountability with all of your teammates. So that's how it gets done. So it's an active spreadsheet. It's from every week. Yeah, you're looking at it from last week. It's correct.
Gotcha. Any idea why Gino Wickman is suggesting companies to use only one OS?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of companies that have used different things. I know there's and even hybrids. I know there's also a book called Scaling Up, which is great, by Vern Harnish. I think it gets, maybe things get redundant if you have too many OSs or too many systems or too many meetings. I personally think, depending on your business, one would be better. It's like if you run a computer, you don't need both Windows and Mac. You probably just need to use one of them to accomplish the same goal anyway.
Right. Any advice if the younger generation wants to change the management, but the higher management is a bit more conservative?
Yeah, that's a great question. That one was really tough. That was even hard for me to implement as a second generation owner, because I think a lot of first gen, old school, get very comfortable with the way they do things. And for me, the thing that made it possible for me to implement, I think, was by having an implementer. So there are implementers I'd be happy to put you in touch with. And I think if you listen to what they have to say, you'll kind of see the issues that your company has as a result of not having a good operating system. And it's a pretty easy decision, I think, for management to make, even if it's uncomfortable for them, because ultimately they can see the benefit in having such a system in place. So I think if you're like just like a salesperson, my advice would be to maybe first put your owner at least in contact with an implementer or contact an implementer, then have them like sit in the same room together and see. And maybe it's not needed. I can just tell you that in my company, when I implemented it, and many other companies, because I've done it with about 10 other companies I know, they've all scaled their business significantly. Like they've all grown a lot. They've all gotten all of these rocks done, like I said. So it's definitely an easy sell if the owners or the upper management are open-minded.
Right. What support do you provide each team member in order to make sure they meet the weekly professional accomplishments?
What do you mean by support? Can you be specific? Because I think the act of meeting is support. You know, you're already so collaborative and you're all agreeing together as a leadership team or as any team that this is the solution to a particular issue. So I think that it's not like we're assigning just someone to do something. It's like we're collaborating and agreeing that this is what we need to do and this person should take that step. If they felt that they were just getting things assigned to them, well, then I would encourage them to voice their opinion or say that this is possible or this is not possible. Because if they're too shy to do that, then you don't have collaboration in your company. So they should be able to speak up and say, you know, I can't do this if you can't do it. Because the expectation the following week will be that you complete that to do.
Right, right. Next question is, what's the difference of EOS with Stephen Covey's 4 disciplines of execution?
I'm not familiar with those 4. I'm not familiar with that. I think one's a system and the other one sounds like it's 4 principles to live by. I'm sure they can work in harmony with one another.
Okay. What was your biggest EOS initiative last year that drove your tremendous growth despite the pandemic?
Oh, that's a good one. So remember, like I said, in 2020, we had a liquor ban and we're a wine company. So it was like we had 3 months of no revenue, but we really used that time to like, I think work twice as hard and come up with some different initiatives. I'd say two of the biggest ones. First one was from our market research, we found that people weren't necessarily drinking wine for the effects of alcohol. It was such a small consideration of purchase. And so we figured, well, maybe we can still sell people on the proposition of wine if we know that the reason why people buy wine is to celebrate. And we have to give people reasons to celebrate. So why can't we make a sparkling grape juice with no alcohol? Because wine is just fermented grape juice. If you get grape juice, you allow it to ferment, yeast converts the sugar into alcohol, and that's pretty much wine. So we said, why not just make 100% grape juice, bottle it, sell it as a wine per se. And that product is actually maybe the most popular wine in the country today. Still, even after the pandemic is over and the liquor bans have been lifted. So had we not done this whole IDS and discuss and solve and solve that solution, we probably wouldn't have launched that product. Had we not even had the pandemic, we wouldn't have launched that product. So the big lesson there was that these challenges actually can bring out the best in you rather than just using it as a crutch, right? And say, can't sell anything because of the liquor ban. The other thing was we were sitting down, and in that same discussion, we realized that if there's a pandemic, it's probably not effective for us to invest critical mass advertising dollars, right? Because who's going to be driving on the streets, who's going to be listening to the radio, becomes way, way less effective. So we pulled out all of that spend and we invested it in digital. We looked into digital and we realized that we can reach just as many people, probably more frequently for like a fraction of the price. So we invested a lot in social media marketing and did a bunch of like brand awareness campaigns that I think were really successful.
Right. Chris, it says in here, how long have you been practicing EOS and what were the initial pain points and how did you overcome it?
Oh man. First of all, they're called L10 meetings because at the end of every meeting, you give a rating from 1 to 10. And you're trying to get 10s from everyone. I know it sounds subjective, but everyone gives their subjective rating. And it's just because it's a new system and it's an extra meeting, it's difficult to get people to really breathe by it and live by it. So getting people on time was already hard. So you can't even be a minute late, like I said. The ratings at the beginning for the first 6 months were really around like 6, 7, 5. Some of them were really bad. But as we kept doing it after the 7th month mark, we were hitting 8s. And now we're hitting like 9s and 10s. So I don't know if that's subjective, but that's just to give you an idea. We've been doing it for a little bit over a year now. At the 6-month mark, I would say is when we really started getting traction. Once people started seeing the results, because it's really fun to succeed. It's really fun when the organization is getting these big projects done as a result of the system, and people buy in even more because they're hitting their incentives and they see that the company is actually fulfilling its purpose.
Right. I guess this is a good follow-up question to that. How do you discipline yourself to be consistent in implementing the processes that is put in place of those EOS?
The same way you discipline yourself to be on time to a meeting. It's really just the act
simple as that.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
In the Philippines, I think everyone knows this, we have a tendency to be a bit late to things. And it's not like traffic is not predictable, right? And so you just account for that traffic, or you account for that transportation lead time, and you make sure you show up. One way to really make sure is just to tell them the only reason you cannot make this meeting is if you're sick, on vacation, or dead. Like, you really have that discipline to say that I'm going to give this meeting, and when I go there, I'm going to be present and I'm going to give it my all.
When somebody had mentioned that the presentation is brief and straightforward, it's a very good example of a scorecard. And for managers like themselves, it is very acceptable. But do you think CEOs or top management levels will appreciate the kind of format as well?
Absolutely. I think they would appreciate it even more. Because behind at the top of every organization is like a visionary. And the visionary is not always so entrenched with the operations of the business. That's typically going to be more like the implementers under the visionary. So the CEO or like the top management, like you want to free them up to do what they're brilliant at, which is being a visionary, having that big picture. And the CEOs and the heads of the companies need to have an idea of whether or not the organization is gaining traction on the vision they set for the company. And they don't need all the details and all the problems, you know, they really need to know specifically like, what are the things that would tell me that the business is in a good place or a bad place, like I said. So a one-page scorecard is really, really great for the owners of the company or CEOs.
Great. All right. Our next couple of questions are a little bit more Navalino specific.
Okay.
Could you share the success story behind the brand?
Yeah. Basically, my dad started the company in 1999. I moved here about 2011. So I've been with the company has been around for 22 years. I've been around for about 10 of those years. When my dad started the company, he just saw this opportunity. It's the idea that the appeal for wine is so high in the Philippines, yet the consumption is so low. And whenever you have a gap like that, you have a business opportunity. Mm-hmm. So my dad sought out to figure out, well, why don't Filipinos drink wine? And we found it was just 3 really simple reasons. It's the taste of the product. They don't like traditional dry tasting wine. It's very bitter to them. The price of the product, they perceive it as being too expensive. It's unaffordable. And then the familiarity of the product. No wine brands were standing out. They weren't advertising. They weren't making themselves they weren't positioning themselves as a lifestyle brand. And so we did those 3 things, addressed those 3 factors. And within the first 3 years of launching the brand, we became the market leader. And now we continue to be the market leader. The category is growing at around a pace of about 8% compound annual growth. And we continue to double that every year, which means that we're able to drive the growth of the wine consumption in the Philippines. So it's a tremendous honor to be able to do that. But that's more or less how my dad started the company. And those are still probably the 3 factors that we continue to harp on, even today, 22 years later.
Nice, fantastic. Chris, for tracking or monitoring in-store visibility, like on-shelf availability for Navalino, how do you make the process more seamless? The traditional reporting sometimes tend to be inefficient. It takes a lot of back and forth. Do you partner with external partners, i.e. manpower agencies, or organize your own set of these?
Yeah, merchandising, we partner with third-party agencies, and we just make sure to train those people. And you know, our reporting it's not the prettiest either, because it requires a lot of manual labor and coding. But it's information you need to have to get an idea. Like, it's so easy on one line to see that your on-shelf availability is like X%. But if you actually go into the data for you to derive that conclusion, I mean, it's like it's a 1,000-line Excel spreadsheet, you know. And then, So that's what I'm saying too. Like, we really just need to know the big picture. Are we better off than we were the week before in regards to availability? Are we at the threshold that's acceptable for us to say yes on the scorecard and move forward?
Right. I think this is our final question. Is growth more driven with availability or adding new products?
That's a really, really good question. Both, I would say. But the low-hanging fruit is making sure your product is available. It will be costly for you just to launch new products. Why launch new products if you can't even keep your products in stock? You'll have the same problem for the product that you launch. So for me, my principle is that distribution is the #1 driver of offtake. The product has to be available for customers to buy first. Once you settle that, then you can talk marketing, then you can talk product development. But fix the operation first to make sure you can keep that new product in stock.
All right, fantastic, Chris. I'm going to ask you to stay for just a bit, and we'll call everybody else for a group picture. We'll call in Mansmith Chairman, Mr. Josiah Gaw, Mansmith CEO, Chiki Escarialgo, and Mansmith Partner Conference Chair, Bong Makasayat. All right, everybody, are we all ready on my count again? 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, thank you, Chris. I hope you can stay for just a little bit more and head to the Q&A box and answer the questions that are left.
Sure.
For our attendees, I'd just like to remind everybody to please make sure that you filled in your questions using the Q&A box instead of the chat box so that we could see them and ask our speakers about it. All right.
Thank you, Christopher.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
So we are down to our last two sessions, and I hope that you maximize this opportunity and ask questions during the Q&A portion or anytime by typing them, as I had mentioned, at the Q&A box. With that, allow me to introduce to you our very next speaker. He is a multi-awarded branch manager at Sun Life Financial Philippines, having been bestowed as Asia's insurance industry's youngest master agency manager in 2019 up until 2021. This is the highest award given to any insurance agency manager worldwide. Philippine insurance industry's youngest and fastest promoted agency manager, and Sun Life's top one branch manager from 2019 to 2021 in various parameters. Overall, JV has just not broken many records, but also created new standards for individuals within the entire industry to match. With his achievements, backed by a well cemented and humble background, he is shaking up the insurance game most definitely. Last 2020, he has also won the Mansmith Young Market Masters Award for Sales Management. Please welcome to the floor Mr. J.V. Badil to discuss about the new generation sales management.
Hi everyone, good day. My name is JV Badile. I'm a branch manager and a licensed financial advisor of Sun Life Financial Philippines. So let me introduce myself by introducing to you the things that I do apart from being a financial advisor. I used to be a dancer, an events coordinator. I used to be in student leadership way back in college. I love to travel. I love to do a lot of things in my life. But then again, there are things that people do not know publicly. I am adopted. This is my family. My mother is a vendor. My father is a porter. And I was just adopted. We live in a very poor squatters community in Bukawi, Bulacan. This is my house for 28 years. And we are nine in the family. Take note. We are actually a very poor family in our town, in our community, wherein we really need all to work. Particularly me, when I was young, I needed to work making chicharon, making firecrackers, being a vendor, being a barker, and doing a lot of things just to make sure I survive my my education and to be able to help my family as well. Fast forward to today, I'm happy to announce that I already have my own house in Bukawi, Bulacan. Not just one, but two houses. This is actually the house that just finished last week. Also, I was able to buy my second car, my third car, wherein I already have a driver for 4 years already. Also, I have businesses. I'm one of the owners of Kumi in the Philippines, of all branches of Kumi in the Philippines, and also T2. And this is a teaware stores that came from Australia. Also, I have been traveling the world since I became a financial advisor. I've been to more than 20 countries already. I've also been able to bring my family abroad, my nanay and my tatay, bringing them to Dubai, to Australia, to New Zealand, and even bringing my family to the best places here in the Philippines. Also, I am well celebrated because I am always top one sales manager and top one branch manager of my company, which is Sun Life. There you go. So there are myths that I was able to debunk when I joined the insurance industry because people think in the past that only the Chinese people, the old people, and the rich people would thrive on this business. I have nothing against the Chinese. I actually elate them in such a way that the Chinese, most of them know how to manage finances, know how to do business, gives importance to insurance and investment. That's why if you are a Chinese in our industry, surely you'll be able to sell. The old have friends who are VPs of company and probably are already accomplished in life. The rich people have rich market. So meaning to say, if you are one of these three, you will be able to thrive in the insurance industry. But then again, I'm a Filipino. I'm young because I was 27 when I got promoted as a branch manager. And also, I'm not rich. Obviously, I came from a very poor family here in Bulacan. The thing is, I was able to do a lot of things to be able to make sure that I would thrive in the business, even though I'm not one of the three examples that I've given to you. Recruitment, I recruited the right people. Meaning to say, I've chosen the people that I would get into the job. They may be college graduates already with Latin awards, even with MBA, and probably doing well in the job that they currently have already. But then again, I come to realize that in our industry, it's either you recruit the right people or you make them right. You do your best to be able to make sure that your people will be the right people for the job. In terms of recruitment, there is this thing called traction marketing. Traction marketing is attracting people to join your company voluntarily because they saw the potential in the job and they saw the environment in the business. But then again, there's also this thing called headhunting, wherein you specifically pick the right person or the people to join your team. Both strategies in recruitment, they work for me. Both the traction marketing and headhunting. In terms of activation, we activate our people by recognizing them, making sure that they are appreciated in that manner. We give them incentives. We make sure that the sense of purpose is clear to their hearts and they are engaged. And that is RISE in terms of activation. In terms of retention, I've come to realize that for people to stay in any organization, there has to be a very good culture, so to speak. The structure, the system, and the standards, they all have to be in place. And that is why people retain in a company because of a very good culture. Then, Starfish Framework is what I've created for me to be able to explain thoroughly why we are successful in terms of managing our salespeople. Our promise is we change lives. Every single advisor or agent in my institution, in my branch, know exactly the purpose or the promise of our organization. The story of the starfish thrower goes like this. One day, sa isang isla, there had been a typhoon wherein all of the starfish in the island, in the sea, for instance, have been washed out in the shore. Why? Because there had been a big typhoon. And there is this little boy picking up one by one the starfish and throwing them back to the sea. Why? Because the starfish needs to survive. So there was this old man that saw the little boy from afar and approached the little boy and said, "What are you doing?" The little boy said, "I am saving the starfish." The old man just laughed out loud because it knows that the saving of all the starfish is not possible. There would be hundreds of thousands, even though that would still die. But you know what the little boy did? It picked up a starfish, threw in the sea, and said, "At least I made a difference on that one." And that is actually the objective of every financial advisor in my institution. They need to be starfish thrower, and it has to be clear to them the promise of our institution to change lives. So the starfish thrower, I created the starfish framework, wherein it is consisted of 5 P's. It starts with purpose, programs, partnerships, platforms, and promotions. And let's do it one by one. Let's discuss purpose first. Purpose is the mission, vision, and the values of any organization. It has to be clear. Why? Because any person should know clearly what the person is doing and where the person will go. And that's mission and vision. And the values are the guiding principles and qualities that they should possess to be able to be where they have to go. Traditionally, yes, there are mission, vision, and values. Probably in the institution for 5, 10, or even 20 years. But now, value adding is we introduce yearly recalibration of mission, vision, and values. And it has to be clear. It has to be present all over, whether digital or physical. It has to be on the door, on the window, on the bulletin board. In every meeting, we emphasize our mission, vision, and values to the point that the role and the involvement of the people have to be explained thoroughly. There is career orientation whenever we recruit people, but the career orientation transformed from being a business presentation, discussing income, discussing commission, into an advocacy presentation. In terms of programs, the programs are the engaging in the value adding activities of the organization. Traditionally, we do trainings that are skill based and product based. Value adding, we transform into doing it online, virtually. We also do our meetings, all our programs with innovations. We make sure that it's a fun meeting, it's an engaging one. There's even artists, there's even costume party. We just need to make sure that all the programs are engaging, particularly when we are talking about millennials and zillennials. There are even fitness wellness programs. There are after hour activities wherein after the usual working hours, we dine out. We make sure that they are not exhausted on the job as a financial advisor. There are also regular leadership alignment and development for our advisors and for our people. In terms of platforms, these are the tools and services that we provide to be able to perform our job. Usually and traditionally, it is paper based. The social media marketing are all freestyle, and we do our communications through email. Now, we assume that not everyone is tech savvy. That's why we introduce tech education to everyone who will enter into our company. There's training in Microsoft, Excel, and Google Form, and all other online platforms that they need to learn. There's also automation and digitalization on the many things that we do. In terms of doing our business, it has to be easy this time. And so many more tools and services that we make sure that will make the business easy. Like the real-time monitoring tool, the mobile application, and the cloud sharing library. In terms of promotions, we make sure that our people are well rewarded and well appreciated. Whether it's because they perform well, they be given some words of affirmation, but more than that, they want incentives. Value adding, we make sure that the reward system is now high value. I give out car, I give out ships to Iceland, Switzerland, to Paris, to all the countries that they've not been probably been into. And also, we institutionalize support programs. We make sure that our advisors are well introduced in terms of their clear path and direction. They know exactly when they join the company that there could be speed on their growth and promotion. In terms of all of these five P's, what if one is missing? If one is missing, if for instance there is no partnership, the people will tend to be reactive. There could be resistance and distrust. But if there is no platform, the way of doing business could be inefficient because the platform is not well in place. It's not probably digital. It's still traditional. There could also be confusion, and the tendency is because the system is not well in place, the managers would do micromanagement. In terms of no promotions, if there are no promotions, incentive programs, or support groups in the organization, the advisors would feel underappreciated. They would feel uncertain on doing their business, and lastly, they could be frustrated. If there is no purpose, there's emptiness. They would feel unfulfilled and unmotivated. And if there are no programs, the engagement could be poor and the productivity could be low. That's why we really advise. I personally really created this framework and advise everyone to put everything in place, to put everything in high value, to be able to succeed as as salespeople and as sales managers. Let's now proceed to overlapping programs and purpose and partnerships and platforms. Let's assume that there are overlapping of these elements. If there is an overlapping between promotions and purpose, you know what? It's going to accelerate mission. It's going to magnify your mission because the purpose is there, but then there's high promotions, incentive programs, and they are very motivated. If there is purpose and program, it aligns vision. You are going to the direction where you want to go smoothly. It's aligned. It's magnified. If there are programs and partnerships, it will develop mastery of the people. If there is platform and partnership, it will drive innovation because the people know where to work using digital tools, and then there is gelled partnership among each other. And lastly, if there's platform and promotions, it will increase productivity because the digital tools and the other tools and services are clear and it's in place, and there is innovation in terms of promotions. The productivity would surely increase. The thing is, that is the time when all elements come together, we change lives. I am a branch manager. I create this program, this framework to be able to make sure that we change lives, not just of our clients, but of our advisors as well. And look at this framework. This framework I've created for everyone is for us to be guided on how to do sales management. In this time of pandemic, particularly that there is emerging sales competency in the market, you should know where to position yourself. And by knowing where to position yourself, the framework has to be clear. And by having a very clear framework, that is the time that we will be able to change a life and to throw a starfish. Thank you so much for listening for my session for today.
Thank you so much, JV. Fantastic. What an inspiring story. Also, I really like the Starfish framework, especially now that we're experiencing the great resignation. Many companies are still struggling to mirror all these key elements to keep their people motivated, engaged, and committed to hitting their goals. So thank you so much for explaining all of that. Now I'm gonna go through our Q&A box so that we could help answer some of our questions from our attendees. Is that okay, JV?
Sure, that's fine, Christopher. Thank you so much.
All right. So some of our questions here is, what inspired you to create the Starfish framework?
You know what? In my past life, I'm talking about my college life. I was an awardee of a National Young Leader Award, and with that award-giving body, the story of the starfish thrower was first mentioned to me. And when I heard of that story, I've come to realize that in my elementary days, even though I'm younger than that, I've already been helping people. I really wanted to be a servant leader. I was always working in the government, for instance, the SK, and so on. So I've come to realize that my purpose in life is basically about serving people and helping people. So when I've been writing down on what framework to introduce to our session for today, I wanted to align Starfish to my framework, and there where it all came from. Then it just so happened that the five P's are five, and the starfish have five tentacles, so to speak. So I've come to realize, oh, it's perfect because I know for a fact that my advocacy in life, my purpose as a human being is to help people and to change lives. But then again, you cannot just be inspiring. You have to have a system. You need to have a framework to follow. And that's where the starfish framework started to be in the place.
Great, great. Can you help explain further your triple S framework or your structures, systems, and standards framework?
There, as I've mentioned to you, I cannot just be inspiring. I need to have a framework. And with the framework, I've always believed that a person or particularly an agent of the life insurance industry would stick to where it is now, where what company or what institution the person is now by having a great culture. And the culture is actually consist of system, structure, and standards. Let me go through by it one by one. First, structure. Specifically on our business, we have daily meetings, we have monthly meetings. So the meetings have to be structured. It has to be scheduled. It cannot be just spontaneous that next week we will have our meeting. Tomorrow we will do have our meeting. It has to be structured in such a way that the schedule has to be predictable. So we will not be confusing our schedule with the schedule of other people. And I'm not just talking about schedule, but I'm talking about predictability of our schedule and of our businesses in general. The second one is system. In whatever we do, there is a clear system to it. As I've told you, I cannot be spontaneous. I have to put a clear system to it. I need to fall on a very clear system. For example, on how we do submit our applications. What do we do on the onboarding process of an advisor? What's the first step, second step? So when you join my team, for instance, you know exactly what to do, where to go, and what to target because it is very clear on the discussion and on the workflow process that we do introduce. And lastly, standards. While our company has its own standards, we make sure that our organization, our branch, for instance, we do have higher standards to follow. Why? Because I really want to maintain quality on my institution. So the standards have to be strict. The awards have to be logical in such a way that my advisors would want to target it because it's the standard of our team. So if there are clear structure, system, and standards, that would comprise a very good and happy culture, so to speak. There is no confusion. People are not really blind on how to do their business because it's very clear. Our business is very spontaneous in such a way that we are not technically employed. So I have to make sure that there are measures in place, and that's where our clear culture is in the picture.
Great, JV. Could you share some of the measures you do for your ROI since you've been investing using your personal funds?
Okay, so the ROI or the return on investment is actually high for me. Obviously, with my story, I was able to have my own house and so many good things I was able to buy. And I could say that I do a sandwich approach in terms of all of the spending or the investment. I invest first when it comes to incentives, for instance, when it comes to food, to making sure that they feel love, I invest so much initially. Then I ask for sales. That's the patty in the sandwich. And then I reward them again. So that's where the sandwich approach of incentivizing will come into the picture. As to ROI is concerned, in the beginning, I focused on the return on investment. And I'm so happy because my level of income is it's getting higher and higher, and the margin of the investment is getting lower and lower in terms of percentage. Why? Because the more you give, the more you receive. That basic concept. But you know what, Christopher, I wanted to be a little cheesy here. That the ROI or the return on investment is now different on my perspective. I now change it to return on impact. The return on impact or the return of impact is actually where you measure it by the lives you've changed. All of my sales managers, they all drive their own Montero or Fortuner for Matt for that instance. My unit managers, for instance, most of them are earning six digits per month and are buying their own cars as well, their own houses. So I could say that the ROI that we are probably discussing here is not just a return on investment, but return on impact. And the impact to the lives of my people are getting higher and higher and higher along the way with everything that I've offered them and I've introduced to the branch.
All right. There are a few more questions coming in the Q&A box, JV.
Sure.
How will you add value to the customer, especially today that we're in a digital world and face-to-face interaction is much less?
You know what, Christopher? I'm a fan of quality. I'm a fan of servicing. So in our branch, I always make sure that we follow the usual protocol and standards in terms of servicing our clients. I'm sure the company has already predicted that there's a workflow process and how do we do servicing. But what is the extra value that we do is number one, it's what we call Phoenix Plus. Phoenix is the name of my branch, and I introduced a Phoenix Plus, which is an extra mile to what we usually do. For instance, we will have our monthly virtual seminar that's out of investment, that's out of being a client, but probably we introduce about fitness or for instance how to make a candle or how to do a certain recipe for instance. So what I'm trying to say here is we add value to what we do by introducing an out of our business topics to discuss. And with that, we are creating loyalty. We are creating a stronger bond to our clients because, so to speak, we're not just about selling. We're not just about product or the catalog that we sell, but we go beyond that. And that's one, the Phoenix Plus, which is an extra mile program that we introduce to our clients. Also, we introduce our COVID care kit, wherein if we do have clients who were infected by COVID, accordingly, we would give them our Phoenix Palm COVID care kits out of the expense of the advisor. But basically, it's in the prerogative of the advisor. It's up to their own choice if they would give it or not. But we suggest, of course, as a branch, as a leadership team, for all of the advisors to give them out. So there, those were the samples of creating more impact and value to our clients, Christopher.
All right, JV. How do you marry different generations in your sales team, from boomers to Gen Zs? How do you influence a boomer to listen or even follow best practices of a millennial and vice versa?
You know what, Christopher? In my branch, there is actually no boomer. The percentage of my team is 99% Zillennials and Millennials, and the 1% are the Gen Xers. So it's not difficult for me to do it. As much as the Millennials and Zillennials, they have things in common. We are mostly, the Millennials were born in the traditional way, but then again, we experienced the transition going digital. The Zillennials were born on the digital era. So, meaning to say, at least on the digitalization, there is resolution on the part of the millennials and zillennials. So it's not difficult for me to marry them or to merge them. The problem probably is how do we let the Gen X engage with the dynamics of the millennials and the zillennials? How do we do it? We respect their differences. I should say we respect their identity. For instance, we would be having a team building where everyone would swim or would have party, and then the Gen X, for instance, they do not want to join. We respect them. So that's number one. Respect the differences. Respect the differences in terms of the generation, in terms of the dynamics, in terms of accepting things, particularly when it comes to feedback, for that matter. Secondly, what I do is I make sure that they benefit from each other. We always listen to our Gen X advisors because I'm sure they have wisdom that we millennials and zillennials would not understand at this point. But also, I emphasize to the Gen X that at this point, we're in the insurance industry is transforming to doing digital. You have to listen to us. There are old tricks that are not working anymore, but there are new tricks that are working well in the industry. So we just need to emphasize that through mindsetting and through action plan, of course.
Great, JV. There's a question in here that says the TV episode featuring your life story. Do you think that helped you recruit more people?
Hmm. Christopher, it helped me like 1,000 times. It helped me like a lot, like big time. My life story was featured in MMK, in KMJS. Then, as I told you, we transformed from discussing career orientation from a business perspective to an advocacy and purpose perspective. So, on that note, whenever I share my story to my incoming advisors, for instance, they really feel the grit and the eagerness to be part of the team because if that thing happened to me, it can also happen to them. One of the characteristics of an admired leader is every leader has to be inspiring. And I'm so happy in the past, in my past life, I would always say that I regret having been adopted. I regret being in this family. I don't like being battered or I don't like that experience in life. But I've come to realize that there is a purpose. And now that story become not just a story in the past, but becomes a legacy. That story becomes an inspiring story that I could tell people and would let people join my team. I could say that currently, for the past 3 years, my branch is the number one branch in recruitment in the entire of our company. We have the biggest and highest manpower count in our company, so to speak. So I could say, yes, it is very effective.
All right, JV. Speaking, this is a great follow up to that. Seeing that your organization is already so big now, but how did you start growing your organization at the beginning? Were the standards very strict during that time?
Ah, yes, Christopher. I have a very high standards. I am perfectionist by nature. So when I first joined my company, on the very beginning, for instance, that I become promoted as a branch man, as a manager candidate, my vision is that 3 years from now, I would become an agency manager or a branch manager. What I'm trying to say here is in the very beginning, I began with the end in mind. So meaning to say all of my actions are geared towards is this helpful to become a BM? Is this helpful to become a sales manager? Is this going to be an instrument to become a big company or a big institution in the future? I've always been looking forward. I've always been planning ahead of time. I'm always 3, 5, 10 steps ahead. Why? because I really wanted to grow so big. So in the very beginning, on the day one that I've become a manager candidate or an assistant manager, for instance, I've already planned out what is going to happen for my life for the next 3 to 5 years. That is a challenge, but that is not difficult. It just needs time. It just needs a lot of inspiration for you to plan it out. And whatever you've planned out, you need to accomplish it. And that's where my action would come into the picture. I'm very good in execution. Whatever plans I have in my mental notes and in my actual notes, I would make sure I would accomplish it.
All right, JB, speaking of that, what will be your advice for the startup business today to attract and get more customers, knowing that we have more competitors in the digital world? And
Well,
everything right now is very transparent as it is for a customer to see and compare prices of each products or services.
I think in this time that the competition is so tight already, I could say that it is no longer about the business as in the profit. It is no longer about the income, maybe. It's no longer about the commissions and all of those things. It's probably about the purpose and the value already. I'm talking about how is it going to help other people. You need to position yourself not on the business side, but on its features and benefits on the purpose side. How is it going to help your customers, particularly on the side of the advocacy of the purpose? As to recruitment, probably for example, is concerned, because that is my main strength, so to speak. You need to let people in by introducing to them the value and the advocacy of your organization. If you do not have one, then you need to identify, because nowadays, the competency of any organization would lie on the clear purpose already.
How do you remain focused when you're also expanding your other businesses?
Christopher, I leverage on staffing. I leverage on staffing. For instance, for the last 3 years, I could say that I was a one-man team. I do my own social media marketing. I do my own operations. While I do have secretaries, while I do have staff and administrative assistants, at the very least, I still do all the big decisions. Then I've come to realize that all of those operations must be delegated to other people. So this year, I now have my own social media team. I now have my own operations manager. I also hired my own photographer that will be housed in my branch. Why? Because as my branch is expanding, I cannot do all of the things my own. So I need to focus on doing the more important and the big decisions of my organization and let the other important things be handled by the experts. For instance, my institution is different from a normal a corporate setup. Why? Because we are not being salaried or paid by the company, so it's all based on my own expenses. So it's like I do my own startup business and I hired people to do it. So number one, yeah, I leverage on manpower. Number two, funny as it may be a little unrelated, but I go to gym and do fitness. I get focused while doing the stretching, for instance, and being healthy and fit, because it really helps, at least on the physiological part of focus, so to speak.
All right, I think a couple more questions, JV. Going back to the Starfish framework, um, you might have mentioned this earlier, but how long have you been practicing the framework, and what significant changes did you see with your people since you started using that framework?
I've actually started to use the framework last year. I think I've started to use the framework on the day one that I've become an assistant manager, and that was like 5 years ago. But I was able to name it just last year, and I was able to standardize and concretize the framework just for this session. Just for this session, I really wanted to put things together, and I've come to realize that I've been doing this, but there was no, should I say, naming convention to it or a very clear structure to it. So that's what I did. As to the impact to my people and the significant differences or changes that have happened, I've come to realize that I cannot do it cyclically every year. I need to change. I need to pivot. For example, incentive. Last year, I have actually given out a raffle of car, for instance, and trip to Asia. But then again, I need to recalibrate it because the need of my people and the appreciation of my people to incentives are changing. So I need to make sure that I do variety of incentives. That's why I group my incentive program into four, into flash incentive, rally incentive, seasonal incentive, and flagship incentive. I've done that grouping of four incentives to make sure that I know exactly where to put the promotion in my team.
All right, JV, I think we're down to our last question, but there are a lot of congratulations on the box and saying that you're very inspirational. Somebody said that they love Kumi. But I think for our last question, how will you give back to the people after all the blessings you've received?
Oh, Christopher, that's a very good question. Uh, Number one, I know I've been doing that a lot during the pandemic. If I may give a figure here, I'm not saying this for me to brag, but at least for the whole pandemic, I think I was able to donate more than 2 million in cash for all those who are in need. And I'm not posting all those things on Facebook. I'm just trying to make sure that you understand the level and impact of help that I do to other people. I make sure that the charity begins at home. So my entire family, even relatives and even friends, are really experiencing the so-called brighter life through me, through my help, through my donations, maybe, or even other forms of help. In terms of looking forward to the future, I wanted to have my own JV Badile Foundation. That's the not that's not the actual name, but I wanted to have my own foundation to be founded this year, and that's where all the support will come into the picture because I've been helping people a lot in so many places, in so many circumstances. Then why not formalize it so people would also help through the foundation, for instance?
Fantastic, JV. So inspiring indeed. I think it's time for a group photo with Josiah, Chicky, and Bong. So please stay. All right,
Hi.
everybody.
Hi,
On my
JV.
cue again.
Hi. I feel starstruck.
All right, in three, two, one, smile. All right. JV, if we can ask you to check the Q&A box for some of the questions that are left unanswered, that will be really appreciated. Thank you so much again. And we appreciate what you have shared and thank you for the inspiration.
Thank you so much, Christopher. You are such a great and impressive host. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think we are ready for the last, but definitely not the least session of the second Mansmith Sales Summit. Let's get right into it and meet our next speaker. She is the managing director of IBS Electronics Groups for Asia Pacific, an expert in quality assurance, technology, and supply chain management. She helps SCM and procurement professionals to simplify, innovate, break the value cost trade off, improve profitability, and optimize their operations. She spent the majority of her career in the electronics industry championing the best in class customer experience through her gain knowledge in supply chain management, sales, marketing, component engineering, leadership, lean management, and operational excellence. She also served as the country director of Ultra Technologies Philippines. To share more about the human side of digital transformation in sales and how to effectively communicate with more than words, please welcome Ms. Beth Dureza.
Are you struggling to hit your sales quota? Do you want to elevate your personal branding? If your answer is yes, then I'm here to give you some practical tips on how to be successful in this digital age of selling and how you can leverage the tools available at your fingertips. Hi, I'm Beth Dureza. I'm the Managing Director for Asia Pacific at IBS Electronics. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you for taking this first step to sharpen your selling skills by attending this sales summit. I guarantee you that after this event, you will appreciate more the role of digital transformation in sales. Let me start by telling our story. I like to call it From Humble Beginnings Come Great Things. Our company was founded by Mr. Robert Tavi. He's an Iranian American who migrated to the United States after finishing his studies from Switzerland. In the 1970s, he worked as a component engineer in a power supply company in the US. Having been exposed to the electronics manufacturing, he saw the need to fill the gap of providing technical and commercial support to engineers and buyers. This sparked his vision to build a company that will provide that service. IBS Electronics was then founded in 1980. Our company now operates in 13 countries around the world, including the Philippines. And the second generation of the Tavis, Mr. Rob Tavi, now sits as our CEO. In 2005, IBS Electronics opened its doors in the Philippines market. When we started, we are behind almost 20 years with our competitions. We have little to no brand awareness with our customers. Another challenge was our product lines were quite niche. We are competing with not just global distributors, but also global brands. So practically, it's a David and Goliath thing. Okay? After 1 year of operation, IBS Electronics Philippines immediately became a fast-rising supplier of choice in the electronics manufacturing industry. Our company helps powered manufacturing companies here in the Philippines and globally by providing them with high-quality semiconductor and other electronic components delivered through our bespoke customer service. Today, we serve companies in the IT and computing, telecom, healthcare, and aviation industries, to name a few. Being a Great Place to Work certified company, we are proud to have our One IBS culture. One IBS is a culture that brings together global innovative thinking and a value-driven mindset. This is the DNA of our business model. As a B2B company, our customer bonding activities highly rely on customer visits, trade shows, organizing lunch and learn activities, and of course, amping up our net promoter score to get more customer referrals. Then, pandemic hits. NCR, including its neighboring provinces, Cavite, Laguna, and Batangas, were put on a lockdown. All our customer bonding activities were put to a stop. Then comes supply chain disruption. Shipping and transportation delays, high rates, and labor shortages are translating into a longer lead time and higher production cost. The demand for electronic devices accelerated by the pandemic rose on unprecedented increase as the world embraced the stay-at-home economy. For our business, this means delay in our shipments as ships were docked and flights grounded. It's actually a logistical nightmare. Added to this is our human challenge. We have back-to-back Zoom meetings. Zoom fatigue became a buzzword. Our calls and emails are ignored. We have poor to no phone service and internet connection, and everyone is experiencing pandemic burnt out. Faced with these uncertainties, as a business leader, my first task was to pivot my team from a sense of panic to a sense of purpose. Psychology tells us that our human brain was not built to handle uncertainties. Our natural tendency is to panic. To counter this, I must create an environment for my team of uncertainty whenever and wherever I can. This means creating a sense of stability for everyone. We focus on three solutions. First is to change our mindset. Next is to use the technology to strengthen and optimize our operation. And lastly, to rehumanize how we communicate. Focusing on what we can control help our team to change our mindset. We obviously cannot control the pandemic and how it will evolve, but we can control our response. We immediately focus our energy on educating and even sometimes hand-holding our people on how to be productive even working from home. We provided them with the tools, resources, and trainings on how to effectively communicate virtually with customers, suppliers, and all our stakeholders. Keeping everyone engaged is one of our priorities. So we amp up our virtual social gatherings. We have dress up Mondays, we have morning greeters, and virtual happy hours. This keeps my team busy. This also helps bring a sense of belongingness and a purpose to everyone. Next is to leverage technology. Pre-pandemic, we had our CRM, or customer relationship management platform, in place, but we are not fully optimizing it. Then COVID made us realize that optimizing our CRM adoption was key in managing our deals effectively. We also doubled down on digital marketing using social media platforms, especially LinkedIn, to send our branding message to our target audience. Our sales were trained to amplify their personal branding as well. We created their get to know me videos like this. Our tools of the trade are nothing but familiar, I guess, to everyone. Just like most of us here, we became experts in Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, you name it, we know it. Our virtual meetings are conducted almost every day. We also use Office 365 to share and collaborate files and ideas. We became more active in promoting our personal and corporate brand on social media like LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And at the center of it all is our CRM system, which is Pipedrive. I'd like to share with you some of our Get to Know Me video campaigns created by our marketing team. This could also inspire you to create your own campaigns for your sales team. Since we cannot visit our customer, we send these video clips to them for a more human connection.
My name is Iliana Quintero. I am an account manager for IBS Electronics. I have worked in the electronics industry for 6.5 years, yes. Quality means efficiency and accuracy every time. Team is to me working together to achieve one goal. Integrity means doing what's morally and ethically correct. My favorite color is blue. My favorite season is winter. My favorite movie is The Lion King.
These are some use cases for our personal and corporate branding post on LinkedIn. Anything that we post relating to our people and our personal experiences to enhance our work-life balance create more engagement than just merely posting product selling. Our next strategy is to rehumanize how we communicate. This means going beyond plain text and emails and maximizing the power of video messaging. We found BombBomb. It's an email video messaging platform that creates an in-person experience that overcomes time and distance. So why use video messaging? Because 93% of communication is non-verbal. This is according to a study by UCLA psychology professor Albert Merabian. We learned to create video messages for our customers to send product demos, explain our proposal and quotation, and of course, send our personalized greetings. These are just some examples.
Merry Christmas, Cesar! Salamat sa lahat ng support sa IBS Electronics. And right now, hindi tayo magkikita because of this pandemic. But I'm using the technology para at least personalize naman ang aming message.
Hi, Miss Tess. Long time no see. I hope you're doing well and also safe. right now. So since hindi kami makavisit sa inyo, so magsisend na lang ako ng video message. So today, I'm excited to share our newest line card, which is DI Semiconductor. Na-introduce na siya ni Tracy, but just to add on, I just like to have a quick run through of their company profile. Consistent with these strategies, both 2020 and 2021 were our record years. Our revenue and profits soared, even outpacing our industry growth rate. So what are our key takeaways? First is really changing our mindset. Mindset setting is very effective, especially during uncertainties. Next is always leverage on technology that is available to us. Then rehumanize how we communicate, because human-centered approach in digital selling always wins. Thank you, and I hope you've learned a thing or two with our presentation.
Well, thank you so much, Beth. There are a few questions. If you could share with us some more of your insights and allow our attendees to learn a bit more about your presentation. Are you ready?
Sure, Chris. Yes,
All
go ahead.
right. So what was the initial feedback from your customers when they received your email video messages, and how did it translate into improving relationships and sales?
Okay, actually, the initial feedback that they gave us is they liked it. They were amazed how tech savvy IBS Electronics is. It's really having that connection, because right now, because of the pandemic, we cannot visit them, and we cannot also set a meeting with them because they themselves also have their back-to-back meetings. So in order for us to send out the message on time, and also to have put a face to the message, the video messaging really helps send the message across to them with that more human touch.
Fantastic. You know, that bomb is very interesting. But how is it different from other video messaging platforms like Messenger or WhatsApp?
Okay, so there's a lot of video messaging platform which is embedded in the instant messaging, just like you mentioned, Messenger, WhatsApp. But the good thing about BombBomb is it provides us with data analytics. We can know what was the engagement of our audience, meaning how many % of the video they watch. And we can also know what is the time and date they opened the message. So once we receive that notification from BombBomb, we immediately call up the customer and ask them, hey, have you seen my video message? If you want more clarification, then I can give it to you. So in sales, timing is very important, and having that first of mind to the customer is really key for us, because there's a lot of competition in our industry. And if you have that advantage of knowing when and what time does your customer open your video email message, I think you will surely win in the competition.
That sounds great, Beth.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the chat box. Okay, this is a good question. According to research, workplace needs fewer meetings to beat a Zoom fatigue. How do you run a productive and effective Zoom meeting?
Okay, so for our company, just like anybody else, the early speakers, we have our regular meetings. For our sales, it used to be weekly meetings, but then again, we try to reduce it. Now we do have bi-monthly meetings, so we do it every other week. And we try to structure it with having an agenda in place. And second is, as much as possible, we need to review. We do like a structure of 30% review of the previous week, and 70% is always forward-looking. So with that structure, 30-70, we don't just focus on what has happened, because we really cannot do anything about it, but we just do a reflection of what needs to be improved, what did we learn, what do we need to do next time to make it better. So we're always having that forward-looking meeting. And of course, just like any organization, it's sometimes we have to put fires in order for us to move forward.
Great. I think this next question, Beth, is the flip side of that. Somebody said that you presented a very great story in adapting to the sudden change brought about by the pandemic. Now that we're going through another big change, i.e., or quote unquote, a return to office, what are some of the approaches you're employing at IBS to reacclimatize the team to the physical workplace and with your clients too?
Okay, very good question. Actually, right now, because of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, the price of oil has really surged, and I try to understand the the impact of this to our people. So we have reduced the number of days that those traveling more than 25 kilometers from the office, so they are not required anymore to come to office. We reduce the number of times they come to the office because since I think when we moved from level 2 to level 3, we started coming to office at 50% capacity. But now, because of this conflict, we further reduce the number of times they need to come to the office because it's really hurting all of us. And I think that's one way that we can show our care and compassion to those really affected.
I see.
It's just one practical way.
Right, Beth. Speaking of those, please share a few things you did to change your employees' mindset, especially from a sense of panic to a sense of purpose.
Okay. Actually, it's very cliche to say that sense of panic to sense of purpose, but to give you some really practical tips, it's just really helping them to map out what they can and cannot control. For example, we cannot control if the customer will say yes to our meeting request, like Zoom meeting or virtual meeting. But we can control the frequency on how we want to send them video messages, right? Because that's in us. We have the tools. Our people were trained how to create video messaging, compelling video messaging with the hook and the call to action. And the second example is giving them the leverage to decide, because in times of crisis, some information may be limited. So I have to train my people to make that decision, and having that fast and better decision-making skill set is very crucial in our business, because I cannot always be the VP of bottlenecks, meaning everything has to come to me for a decision. So I delegate as much as I can. I train my people to have critical and lateral thinking so that they themselves are aware of what not to decide and what needs to escalate to me.
All right. I think, Pat, this next question was asked already earlier, but this is a little bit more detailed. Have you returned to face-to-face work environment, or do you intend to do so? And if so, what changes internally and externally do you anticipate now that health protocols are easing up? Will you adopt a blended type of operation moving forward, or a combo of face-to-face and or work-from-home arrangements?
Okay. I would say that we are adopting already the hybrid model since last year, because when we have the chance to go to the office, then we come to the office, because our business is very much service oriented. And as you know, in the Philippines, unfortunately, the phone signal and the internet signal is always a challenge. So for those people that needs to be front facing to the customer, we make sure that they come to office at least 2 to 3 times a week or every other week. So we have a schedule for that. And then actually we're expanding our office by Q4 of this year. So it's also a question, hey, you're doing hybrid, but you want a bigger office. The purpose for that is really to have a more collaborative type of environment and to really make the office setup a home setup for everyone. So we try to emulate what have we learned from the pandemic, where when you're working from home, you want everything at your hand reach. Like if you're working from home, there's the restroom, there's the couch. So we would like to have that same type of environment in our office.
I see. I think this next question, Beth, is slightly related to your very last statement. How will you motivate your employees to get the success and work with the same goal when everyone feels pressured and fatigued?
Sorry again.
How
How
will
do
you
you motivate?
Yes, how do you motivate your employees to still be successful when they're feeling pressured and fatigued?
I see. Very good question. Actually, the sense of achievement is very important, in my opinion, and the sense of belongingness. So if they're having fatigue or Zoom fatigue for that matter, I make sure that I, as a leader, also have that vulnerability to be fatigued or to be tired as well. So I mirror what they also feel, and I don't pretend. I tell my team that, hey, maybe we can skip this meeting because we have other things to do, and I'm not really in my current mindset right now because I'm having back-to-back meetings already. So having the transparency and having that sense of belongingness, that you are in one tribe, you are working all of these goals together. I think that, in my opinion, give the practical message that you have to be with the team no matter what, through thick and thin.
That's great. That's a great way of putting it. I think if I was under you, I'd probably feel inspired to work harder as well when I know that my supervisor is doing the same.
Thank you.
One last question we have in the chat box. What role has your CRM played, or how has it helped you in the new selling normal?
Oh, the CRM is very critical for us. Why? Because the CRM could give us the insighting, as what we've learned from Prof. Bong yesterday. So it provides us descriptive and prescriptive insighting. We could see which customers are progressing, which projects are having a click with our customer, which products, I mean. And also it helps us with sending out our campaigns, measure the success rate, etc., and also to organize the information, because our operation, we deal with manufacturing companies. So one manufacturing companies could have at least, on the average, 1,000 manpower. And it's really hard to memorize all their names, who are the right decision makers, if you do not have that CRM system in place to keep track of all your critical information. So I think for the new normal, or the technical savvy or digital savvy salesperson, having that innate feeling of learning the tools of the trade, like the CRM, this email, video messagings, and all the rest, LinkedIn, whatever, how to post your personal branding video. I think if you would have to embrace it, it's going to give you that ROI later on.
All right. Beth, please excuse me. There are a few more questions that came in after I said last question. All right.
Sure.
How will you cope up and stay afloat in the middle of the pandemic? And what kind of approach or strategy did you use to still have a competitive advantage?
I see. Our competitive advantage really relies on our people. I'm very proud to say that, because we were trained to spot opportunities even beyond what we can see. What does it mean is, practically, if a customer has a requirement, and at the onset we do not have the product to offer, then we provide them with alternative solution. That keeps us afloat, because we don't just say no. We try to be creative in offering other solutions to our customer, because selling is really identifying the pain points of your customer.
Mhm. And that's this next question, Beth. I think it's a great follow up, and I feel like it's very interesting, especially it's selling. It's really a personal experience. Analyzing your customers' behavior through digital tools. How do you develop your people's skills to read insights?
I see. So it's very basic. We provide training during the adoption of our CRM. It took us, I would say, almost a year for us to perfect how to use it. And until now, we're learning because Pipedrive is continuously improving their software. So as new features are introduced, we have a focus group, and then we discuss, oh, okay, I found out that Pipedrive is offering this, so let's play together, what are your findings, etc. So they were trained. Of course, training is very important. Don't just give the tools. And as a leader, I walk the talk. I am the number one, like, data scientist, as I
Mhm.
would call myself in the office, because I have to learn how to use it before I can ask my people to use it themselves. And in fact, I think that's one of the biggest trait a leader should have in this digital world.
All right. I think this is a great segue. How would you know if your team or some of them are already burnt out?
Well, that is a very tricky question, because at the office, you can see that you can easily observe that someone is having a bad day, because sometimes they're just very silent at their desk. But at the Zoom meeting or any virtual meeting, I can also sense by way of their, sometimes the human nature will also mirror even in the digital world. They're not very participative, and they just keep on muting their microphones. And then I reach out to them, hey, is there any problem, or what's happening with your customer? I start with a very cliche discussion, and then I slowly funnel into a more personal discussion whenever needed. Yeah,
I
it's a
see.
very tricky question.
All right, Beth, I promise this is the final question. The tools you selected, which I kind of agree, BombBomb, Pipedrive, they're very innovative and definitely aren't the usual names. What's your technology selection process?
Well, being a US based company, we're very lucky to have a CEO that is very tech savvy. So, as you know, in the US, there's a lot of software as a service company, and the tech companies are all incubated in the US. So they cascade all this to us, and I'm fortunate to be one of the focus group that has to test the system, do a test run, etc., and then give feedback. And we always ask feedback also from our end users, our people. We conduct surveys, because before we used to have a locally developed CRM system. I won't mention their names, but we changed it because number one, there's no Outlook integration or email integration, so that's very important for us. And also, there's a lot of feature in Pipedrive that we really love. Of course, there's a lot of available in the market, like Salesforce. Salesforce is, I think, number one, but it's
Mhm.
it's very expensive, in my opinion. No offense to Salesforce or for those using it. Pipedrive, you can, if you go to their website, I think the pricing plan starts at $12.50 per user, and as you add more feature, it will go up to $99 per user.
I see. Well,
But
thank you very much, Beth. I think we're going to take our last group photo for this summit. So we invite Josiah, Chiki, and Bong again to join us.
Thank you, Beth. Very good.
welcome, Prof.
All right. And Mike, you again. 3, 2, 1, smile. Thanks so much, Beth. I think there are maybe a few more questions that are coming in. We'd appreciate it if you can check them. If there are any questions left for you.
Thank you, Christopher.
Oh, you're
Take
very
care.
welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Before we move on to the last part of today's event, I'm excited to share with you that Mansmith has officially announced the winners of the second Mansmith Innovation Awards To learn more, please watch this video. Congratulations, everybody. Congratulations to all the winners. Registration for the summit on April 26 and 27 is free, so hurry and head on mansmithinnovation.com. The Mansmith Young Market Masters Awards is back, and it's back on. It's on the lookout for the next excellent Filipino marketers, sales managers, and entrepreneurs whose achievements encourage and inspire young people to be innovative entrepreneurs and outstanding brand builders. Do you have what it takes? Please watch this. For more information, all these details will be available at youngmarketmasters.com. All right, finally, I'm equally excited to break the news that the 13th Mansmith Market Masters Conference, dubbed as the Marketing Conference of 2022, is back on June 14th to 15th, 2022. For more information, please watch this video. This most awaited Mansmith event is now open for registration, everyone. Please visit marketmastersconference.com to learn more. Very exciting year ahead for Mansmith. I hope that you don't miss these opportunities as well. Now we are down to the last part of this summit, the synthesis, where our conference chair, Bong Makasayat. I'd like to remind our participants that this time we'll be opening the floor for Q&A after the synthesis, so I hope you'll maximize this last chance to ask questions. Now, please welcome back on screen Professor Bong for his Day 2 synthesis.
Most sales organizations have major issues in execution, alignment, and monitoring of plans. This has been a pestering problem for many. Amidst a more uncertain environment, salespeople must be able to navigate with agility while remaining focused on the goal. Our speakers enlighten us on how sales operating models enabled by right tools can become so powerful in the execution of sales strategies and attainment of goals. They are not the strategies, remember that. They are tools and processes that support strategies. Some sales organizations get trapped in the status quo and are unable to pivot. Some embark on more sophisticated tools like CRMs, which some salespeople find too complicated to use. Google and other winning companies are using OKR, Google OKR, as their goal setting and alignment tool. And Larry Page, the co-founder of Google, says OKRs have helped lead us to 10 times growth many times over. Our speaker, Chris Kimbo of Novellino, shared with us the use of the right tool to help focus the sales organization to the right priorities. A tool that helps salespeople in goal setting, monitoring, and alignment. The EOS model adopted by Novellino is helping them with sales organization checkup, as it measures organizational strength in 6 dimensions or components of the EOS model. So the right tool like the EOS model adopted by Novellino is also helping them develop the right habits for its people as they are guided, kept on track, reminded on a daily basis. Now, the Starfish operating framework used by JV of Sun Life helps develop and nurture sales management and selling competencies. Without an operating model, sales are left to trial and error and spur-of-the-moment decisions. While these are tools and not strategies, when one is enabled and guided by these right tools, the job becomes easier and competencies evolve much faster. Having lived through the pandemic for the past 2 years, it is not anymore a question of whether a sales organization needs digital sales tools or not to support its operating framework. It is a must-have if you want to at least survive. Beth Dureza of IBS Electronics shared very interesting competencies that enable her sales team to leverage on technologies and rehumanize how they communicate. So like what I find in most of our clients, the 3 speakers have developed and perhaps mastered at least 3 sales and selling competencies. And they are as follows. Number 1, listening skills. I am talking about active listening. Salespeople are trained to speak, to present persuasively, to parry objections here and there, but little training is given to listening. Have you gone through a listening seminar? Did you know that listening requires more facial muscles than talking? Maybe that's one of the reasons why we prefer talking. The second competency is in asking power questions. So part of active listening skills is the ability to probe by asking power questions, to use framing or reframing techniques in questioning. The third competency is data storytelling. Our customers prefer listening to a story than a sales pitch. What is data storytelling? Data storytelling is the practice of building a narrative around a set of data and its accompanying visualizations to help convey the meaning of that data in a powerful and compelling fashion. Data storytelling boosts client communication and engagement. It explains, enlightens, and engages your audience. There you go. I'd like to honor our speakers today, Beth Dureza, Chris Kimbo, and JV Badile. Thank you so much for your selfless contributions to the selling profession, to this industry. An awesome thanks to our host, my student in Ateneo Graduate School of Business, Christian Monani, I call him CM. Yeah, so CM, you did me proud. So God bless you all. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Professor Bong. As promised, we're giving our audience a chance to ask questions once again. To our participants, please send your questions via the Q&A box, and please upvote the questions that you want to be prioritized as well. Professor Bong, I think there are a few questions on here already. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. Out of the 7 competencies that were discussed, what's the most significant skill that we need to prioritize?
Okay. No, actually, the short answer to the question is it depends on the priority of your organization. But if I were to pick, if you force me to really pick my priority, it would be in data analytics, because I really would love to teach salespeople and sales organizations to really be very good in using different types of data analytics. Again, it's not their job to run the analysis, because we have data scientists or statisticians, and we have tools in our organization to run it. But it's very important to develop their skill in analyzing the output of the analysis, so that they can come up with, they can obtain insights. And remember, insights are very useful in integrating them in your strategies. Because a lot of Salesforce teams, they seem to have recycled sales plans. So they need to be trained on really how to go deeper into the not only behavior, needs, and aspirations of their customers, and even channels for that matter. So that's data analytics. And then, so that's internal. And then when you also present to your customers, especially now that there are many who are still presenting by online, like a webinar or like a Zoom, it's very important that they develop their skill in data storytelling, because data storytelling requires you to be very good at data, because you will leverage on data to tell your narrative. And then part of data storytelling is the use of visualizations, because you're telling a story. So you need to be very good at using visual tools, because otherwise you will bore to death your customer or your prospect. So if you can get data storytelling, in fact, data storytelling is encompassing data, visual tools, and your ability to put them into a story that is more engaging, more inspiring, more interesting for your customers, rather than the usual sales pitch.
All right. I think, Prof. Bong, that might have answered the next question, because that question was how to formulate great data storytelling. So your answer might
Yes.
answer that question. So another question in here is says that for each of those competencies, who should adapt the skills in the sales team?
I'm sorry, who should?
Who should adapt the skills in the sales team?
Okay, so talking about modeling behavior, so it has to emanate from the top. And, our last speaker, Beth Dureza, is a quintessential model of adopting skills first herself, and then modeling it to her people. Because if you don't model it, what's the point? And you cannot rally people behind you, and that's so you have to model it first.
All right, great. Hold on, there's one more that came in. Well, a couple more. Hi, Bong, this is Ian. My question is, how would you define an ideal sales professional of today? What would be their main skill sets?
Okay. Hi, Ian. So that's Ian Santos. Okay. So the ideal sales team. That's a very good question, because with the advent of pandemic, a lot of things changed. And part of which is the skill set of salespeople or even sales organization as a whole. And Ian, I have clients which I noticed, no, when the pandemic hit, there were sales teams who were not ready how to face their customers because suddenly you cannot see the customer, and suddenly even if there is a digital tool, the customers are not able to use a digital tool, so they're not competent to use those tools. So digital transformation became a challenge for many. And so Ian is in pharma, and he would know that even in pharma, the doctors, especially at the onset of pandemic, the doctors, you cannot detail your products to the doctors, and pharma companies needed to teach them how to operate an application tool. And some wanted to abandon the application tool and would rather use Viber, for example. And many doctors were educated on how to use those digital tools to also do e-consulting. So there was a time that these types of customers needed to be transformed into that. And going back to the skill set, so now more and more salespeople are required to, as I have mentioned, learn the skill of data analytics, because you really need to. You are forced to come up with insights that. So before you are, give me a second. Before you're loaded, when your sales strategy is data driven, but it's not enough to be data driven. It has to be insight driven. And so we need to teach our people how to derive that insight. And the only way you can do that is really to, how to dig data, and of course, couple that with some qualitative techniques to obtain information. Now, so that's one, and then the listening skill. And as I've mentioned, many salespeople are trained how to speak persuasively. But remember, during the pandemic, people are so stressed and they don't want to attend meetings anymore. And I'm a adjunct professor, and I know that students are so stressed attending classes online. And so we needed to adjust as professors because our students are our customers also in that sense. And so that's why I've been teaching data storytelling to most of our clients. So to enable our salespeople to really use those data and deliver them through a story and using visual tools that are very appealing and engaging. So there you go. Those are very important skill set for your salespeople.
All right, Prof. Bong, I think this is a good segue. When discussing out of the 7 competencies, you've discussed the most significant. Is there such a thing as the least significant competency?
If it's a competency, it's not insignificant or less significant. If it's a competency. By the way, a lot of people misconstrue competency as skill. So competency is like knowledge and skill. So you have knowledge and then you apply that, you develop your skill. But actually, there's a higher level to the definition of competency. Competency is, for example, I teach you how to write a sales plan. So that's knowledge that I imparted. And then I ask you to write a sales plan. And then I see that you're able to write a sales plan. But now that you have the knowledge and the skill how to do it, then I release you to the real world, and then you now write the sales plan. So that's where your competency comes in. So are you competent? Because competency is outcome, it's outcome based. So it's really the application of your knowledge and skill. So that means, going back to that question, there is no list competency. Well, if you rank them, then
sure.
Yeah, some would fall at the bottom and some would be the priority.
All right. Next question. How do you marry the management preferences to conceptualize creative approach and promotions with limited budget to accounts who prefers cash rebates or discount offers only to increase sell-in?
Okay, first is I always correct salespeople when saying limited budget because there is no company oozing with budget. Okay, resources would always be limited. So that's why you need to know your priorities, because when you know your priorities, you know where to put your money. And by the way, strategy is a choice where to play. So that forces you to make the decision to prioritize. And and again, going back again to the competencies that I have mentioned. So when you are always driven by discounts, rebates, pricing strategy. This is, these are old ways of getting sales. Um, you will be commoditized. So you don't want to be in that level. So you're always commoditized. So you're always hooked to the pricing game. So give us more supports. But there are evidences, even in our country, there are evidences of companies who are able to get pass through that. No, uh, when you understand your customers, that's why segmentation. I think I mentioned that yesterday. The segmentation is the skill that you need to teach your salespeople. There are many segmentation approaches, and that's up to you to develop, to choose your own segmentation model. And once you segment customers, you'll discover that customers have different needs, different wants, different aspirations. And then your job is to prioritize which segment to focus on. And there are segments who will commoditize you. But there are segments who are, yes, price is important to them, rebates are important to them, but there are other things that are more important to them. It could be image, it could be service, it could be a peace of mind because they're using high quality products and they are being attended by professional people to provide professional services. And there are a lot. In fact, there are companies during pandemic who focused on uh, their major key accounts.
Mm.
So instead of going around like drunken, headless chicken, they decided to focus
Right.
on not only focus on a particular segment, and they managed to grow their business. So there are people here attending this summit. I saw some people texting me. They are here in this summit. In 2020, 2021, they grew double-digit sales and profits by just focusing on a narrow segment. And when you tell that approach to companies prior to the pandemic, they will not believe you. They will not even follow that strategy. They want to have more customers, more channels to attend to a lot of people. But what they did was to focus, and that was not perhaps largely by design, but it was because of the situation. You have to adapt to the situation, and look what happened to them. They doubled their sales, doubled their profits.
All right. Prof. Ba, I think this is kind of timely. It's a two-part question. Is there a difference in developing rapport with clients or customers digitally and face-to-face? And having said that, how would you know if a particular salesperson that is good in selling virtually would automatically transfer that face-to-face?
Okay. So, what was the first question?
Is there a difference between selling virtually and in person?
Okay. This is what we discover. It actually depends on the customers you're talking to. So that's why you really need to understand the the digital preparedness of your customers. And in fact, I have clients at the onset of the pandemic. What they did was to orient their customers how to use Zoom. Just do that, how to use Zoom. And I have spoken to the CEO of SquadZip. SquadZip, Beth Duresa was asked a question a while ago. What is the alternative to like expensive
Salesforce and all that.
yeah, Salesforce? So my answer is SquadZip. It's a local company. And there are already many companies using it. And they also shared with me that there are customers that you really need to hold hands in terms of digital fluency. And so what they did was just do orientation, how to conduct Zoom, and even etiquettes in doing Zoom. And that's what they did. And uh, uh, others were, yeah, this one, Squadsip shared with me that there are 4 types of salespeople using digital sales platforms like Salesforce, Squadsip, and the rest. No? And there are people who are using it less relative to others, but are performing. So maybe they're the smart ones because they know what to push, the buttons to push. There are people who use it a lot, but are not productive. So, so, so they are always in the digital tool. They are using it, but they're not delivering the sales performance. There are who use it properly and are delivering. So there are other types of people who use it less and not delivering. And when you discover that you have salespeople like that in your team, then you're able to customize your interventions to these types of people. And the beauty about the digital selling tools that are available today, they provide you with dashboards. And so that as a leader, you don't have to really go through the details. You're given the dashboard, one screen, you can feel the pulse of what's going on as far as your sales team's performance and activities are concerned.
All right. I think this next question is somewhat related to that last discussion we were having. How can someone young or new influence those veteran salesmen in the company, those who have been 20 years in the industry, to become more data-driven, strategy-focused, and change their usual mindset about the market?
Okay. Oh, okay. So the young people are going to influence the old ones who are not uh, ready to be transformed digitally. Okay. So uh, again, they can model also, no? Instead of forcing them to adopt to these things. So why don't they do that, and then show that they're not only able to use this technology, but are able to leverage these technologies to increase their productivity and increase their performance. So so against real performance, there is no valid argument. So you have to show evidence. Remember, when you want to change people's behavior, you have to show evidence that what you're telling them is going to work for them. So you are Exhibit A. Okay, so I am Exhibit A. I'm young. I know how to use these digital tools. I actually use them and leverage them and look at my performance.
Mm-hmm. Great suggestion, Prof. All right. This is quite a lengthy question. There is a disclaimer that said that it might be an HR question, but they feel like HR people need to know the side of the salespeople as well and what they're looking for. Are there any parameters that they need to know when they're to make sure that they're hiring the right people to be part of the sales team? Is it conducting an aptitude test or a personality test important? What basic skills or personalities or points that are needed to make sure that it is the right fit for the job?
Okay. Okay. There was a disclaimer, but I need to also correct that notion that HR is limited to or HR matter is limited to HR people. Because once you're a leader, or even if you're a leader of a small team, then you have an HR function. So you have to be involved in recruitment, training, motivating, and making sure you retain your people. So that's an HR function. But for the real HR people, HRs today, HRDs today, and people who are in that department are becoming more strategic. So in fact, they learn marketing, they learn customer satisfaction, because there are two types of customers, external, internal customers. And so I find that they are learning this. Why do I say that? Because I find HR people attending our seminars. Oh, recently I did was it 4 or 5 day series on decision-making process. So I ran a seminar under one of our companies called Coach, decision-making process. And I was expecting that people who would attend there are not HR people, but there were HR people. And they were the more vocal ones, the more engaged ones, because they realized that, hey, as HR people, we need to be more and more cognizant about what salespeople need so that we understand them better, and so that we can tailor fit our, for example, recruitment process. Because these are the insights we're obtaining from salespeople. And so they were so happy attending that seminar. And so that again is a testimony that part of being a strategic HR is able to apply this marketing concepts, sales concepts when you engage with customers.
Right. Next question would be, how do you influence salespeople to think about the needs of end users and not just focus on distributor management and sell in volume targets?
Okay. So I do a lot of training on really influencing salespeople to be more customer centric. And part of that is understanding their, I think I mentioned this a while ago or yesterday, there are jobs to be done. So these are things that they struggle with, and they want to find solutions. So this is part of the jobs theory. And then CM, you were in my class. I've been teaching you how to obtain consumer insights.
Correct.
So it's part of the insighting process. So understanding not only the met needs, but including more importantly, by the way, the unserved and underserved needs of your and customers. And Josiah has been teaching this for the longest time, really emphasizing that you need to understand deeply the unserved and underserved needs of customers. By the way, they change, they evolve. So that set of customer might have different unserved and underserved needs in another time or another circumstance in their life stage. So try to train your people on inciting. So for example, basic in inciting is using Toyota's 5 whys. So why are you using it 5 times? So Toyota, I think, I'm not sure if they were the ones who developed that, but they were using that. And until today, they're using that. So try to understand your customers. And then doing immersive research. So immersive research is not sitting in your office and looking at your sales data, but actually going there and having honest dialogue with your distributors, with your customers, and even shoppers if you are in a retail setting. And so you and teach these people to do content analysis also, because they're getting information. But these salespeople, they go around every day, whether that's online or on field, actual field call. They do gather a lot of information, but there is no discipline in gathering this information into a repository where everybody can share that information, disseminate that information. So only the salespeople know that, because they're not told to share them. And so you need to do, you notice all our speakers, they are guided by frameworks. So they develop this framework and they keep refining this framework. And I suggest that you in sales also develop the same. And that's something that you can customize in your own settings. You have your own culture, you have your own way of doing things. So Why do you develop over time? Because you cannot develop that in one sitting. You need to fine tune it. You need to test drive it, and then finalize it. No, and 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 use it to guide your salespeople, especially in understanding customers, and do an inciting exercise from time to time with your salespeople. So, for example, a case study on one customer, and then do a inciting session so that people would know actually how to go through the process. Okay.
Right. Last two questions, Prof. This one says that this attendee is a big fan of your work, and this person is currently in marketing but wants to strengthen trade marketing competency. Any tips on how to specialize or transition into trade marketing?
No, actually, marketing is marketing. So whether that's a brand marketing or trade marketing, it's marketing. So you follow the same process. You look at for opportunity. Today, I posted a pre-recorded video in Canvas in Ateneo for my Ateneo students on growth opportunities. Now, so you explore, exploit opportunities, then you segment, then you target the most attractive segment for you, then you position yourself there, and then you do the 4 Ps. So these are basic. You actually do the same in trade marketing. So you apply, and in trade marketing, so you also have your Ps and your basic 4 Ps. But in trade marketing, I suggest that you need to understand more on category management, especially when you are in FMCG, or even if you are in B2B. There are, or maybe not B2B, but more B2C setting. Now, so look at category, because category or product category is treated as a business unit by retailers, by business people. So being a business unit, it has to deliver its role, it has to deliver its objective as a business unit. Now, and within that category, so that is in positioning, if you remember CM, my lecture,
right.
So you begin with primary target market, and in trade marketing, you have your primary target market, who are shoppers, and that was lectured to us by Asher John Lu of PNG. So you need to segment your shoppers, and then target shoppers, no, your primary target shopper. After targeting, you have your frame of reference. So in this case, our frame of reference is the category itself. And then under that category, we have the point of difference. So what sets your brand apart in that category? Because there are so many other brands in that category. And that what are the reasons to believe? So it's the same. It has to be executed there at the point of purchase, where people make the decision to buy you or not to buy you instead of other brands. Now, so it's pretty much the same, but it's just, there are other pieces added, like people. In this case, maybe people would be your merchandiser, your promo girl. So, or maybe people in the store. And then there is process. And then some they add other things, but basically you have the 4 Ps. So it's the same discipline, but this time you are not looking at consumer. You are looking at consumer in shopping mode, which are the shoppers. And today shoppers, they shop in various ways, in various channels. So the way they define experience is different, because it's an omni-channel experience. So study them, their shopping behavior. And by the way, the behavior of shoppers are not necessarily the same as the behavior of consumers. So don't make that mistake. So that's why you need to still study even if you understand them as consumer, you need to understand them as shopper. You should be surprised. They will behave differently when they are at the point of purchase.
All right.
Okay.
Prof. Bong, I think this is the last question and a good way to end this discussion. How do you describe the salesman or a key account manager of the future?
Oh, okay. The key account manager of the future. Okay, let me visualize it for a second. So this person is both a scientist and an artist. Okay. So as a scientist, this salesperson is a data scientist. Okay, he understands data analytics. So again, let me reiterate, it doesn't have to be a person who is very quantitative, coming from, mathematics background. So all you need to do is teach that person how to interpret analytics output. And so that person is a data scientist in that sense that I described. And this person is not, the usual sweet talking salesman, your door-to-door salesman. This person is a storyteller who knows how to use and leverage his data, who knows how to leverage his technology, his digital tools, and by coming up with visual tools that he presents or she presents to customers or prospects in a more engaging and enlightening manner. And this salesperson is not a talker, but more of a listener, and a person who knows how to ask power questions. Uh, not to uh, not to force the customer or the prospect to buy the product, but to understand more the customer or the prospect, so that he can tailor fit or customize a solution for that customer or prospect. And that to me is more enduring, because there's a saying, you can lead a horse to the water, but you cannot make him drink. So maybe you can sell today, but how do you sustain that? And customers will respect you when they see that you are behaving in that way as I have visualized. Okay?
All right. Well, everybody, I think that's a wrap for day 2. Thank you so much. As always, Prof. Bong, it's a pleasure learning and listening to you. If I may ask you to please, I think there are a few more questions that last minute came in. If you can answer them, that would be really great and appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To our speakers today, Christopher Kimbo, JV Badil, and Beth Teresa, thank you again for sharing your expertise, allowing our attendees to discover new sales competencies. This ends the second Mansmith Sales Summit. Again, if you missed any session from yesterday and today, don't worry. A replay will be available for your viewing for your all paid registrants and sponsors via the Continuum website. And if you want to get an e-certificate, don't forget to answer the evaluation form. Flash on your screen is how you can answer. This link is also sent in your chat box, so make sure to give valuable feedback, because 6 lucky winners will receive a copy of the best-selling book by conference chair Bong Makasayat. And should you wish to get one more copy for yourself, Mansmith books are also available in their flagship store in Lazada and Shopee. We're giving you 5 minutes to answer this form.
Okay. Oh, there you are, CM. So
Sorry,
I
power
thought we
went
lost
off.
you. Okay.
All right, well, that's the end of the second Mansmith Sales Summit. Thank you, everybody, to all of our attendees. Thank you to all of our speakers, and of course, to our wonderful Mansmith team. Till the next time, we'll see you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, CM. You did very good job.
Thank you all.